Networking has never really been the game of people who already hold power. That might sound like a bold claim, but it's not meant to be provocative. It's simply how power structures have always worked throughout history. If you look closely at any serious system of power, ancient royal courts, political elites, financial dynasties, or modern corporate hierarchies, you'll notice something interesting. Networking is usually practiced by those trying to move upward, not by those already deciding outcomes. Society teaches you the opposite. You're told that success comes from building connections, that progress depends on meeting more people, that if you expand your circle, attend the right events, and shake enough hands, opportunities will eventually appear. You see the images everywhere: private dinners, exclusive gatherings, influential people sitting together in carefully curated circles. The message is simple: grow your network, and power will eventually follow. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This narrative doesn't actually elevate you. It stabilizes the system. It keeps ambitious people busy without threatening the center of power. Because every real power structure runs on the opposite logic. Those who truly hold power rarely expand their network. Instead, they reduce it. Not because they are antisocial, not because they lack social skill, but because power cannot coexist with unlimited openness. Every new relationship creates obligation. Every casual connection introduces leverage in the wrong direction. Every additional interaction adds another variable that can pull influence away from you. Accessibility at the top isn't generosity, it's erosion. People who hold real authority don't try to be widely known. Instead, they decide who is allowed to know them. Access becomes the currency. Control over proximity becomes the mechanism. And the harder it is to reach someone, the more valuable that access becomes. This isn't about personality, it's structural. At the lower levels of any hierarchy, networking is praised. It's called proactive, ambitious, socially intelligent. But at higher levels, the exact same behavior sends a different signal. Weak position. When someone constantly initiates contact, follows up repeatedly, reintroduces themselves, or tries to stay visible, they're unintentionally communicating something very clear in the language of power. I need this connection. And need is always visible. Need always flows downward. This is the paradox most people never confront. The stronger your urge to network, the clearer your lack of leverage becomes. People at the top don't try to enter rooms. They define who enters. They aren't trying to be included. They are the boundary. If you watch closely, the powerful rarely behave the way networking culture suggests they should. They are not constantly visible. They are not endlessly social. They are not always available. Instead, they are selectively absent. And that absence creates tension. Real power doesn't require constant explanation or validation. It doesn't need to be performed publicly. It operates quietly by shaping what happens when you're not even in the room, when decisions slow down without you, when progress stalls in your absence, when alternatives suddenly feel risky. It's power, and none of it comes from social expansion. Power isn't measured by how many people you know or how many messages you exchange. It's measured by the cost of excluding you. When ignoring you becomes a strategic mistake, something interesting happens. Relationships stop being something you chase. They reorganize themselves around you. This is why people who truly hold power often appear quiet, distant, and difficult to access. They're not obsessed with relationship building, because for them, relationships are not the strategy, they're the consequence. They don't operate inside networks. They define the structure the network must adapt to. And here's the uncomfortable realization many people avoid. If you're constantly trying to build relationships, there's a strong chance you're unintentionally signaling your lower position in the hierarchy, not through words, through behavior. Networking exists partly because it helps maintain social order. If networking truly allowed people to easily rise into positions of real power, it would be tightly restricted. Instead, it's promoted everywhere. It's taught in books. It's packaged into seminars, sold as a mandatory skill for anyone who wants to succeed. Why? Not because it threatens power structures, but because it doesn't. The first illusion networking creates is the belief that relationships produce opportunity. In reality, it works the other way around. Opportunity moves toward existing leverage. Relationships form afterward as a byproduct. When nothing is lost by excluding you, every connection you build is temporary, replaceable. You may be welcomed, invited, even praised, but structurally, you remain optional. The second illusion is that knowing many people gives you influence. At lower levels, it might seem that way. But in high-power environments, having too many connections often signals the opposite, a lack of clear boundaries. Real power rarely relies on hundreds of relationships. It relies on a small number of precisely positioned connections located at key points of constraint. Quantity usually signals uncertainty. Those who matter don't circulate constantly. They anchor. The third illusion, and perhaps the most dangerous, is the belief that meeting the right person will change everything. This idea is incredibly seductive. It convinces people to wait for the perfect introduction, the perfect mentor, the perfect opportunity. But in real power dynamics, influence is never handed to someone who cannot create risk if ignored. There is no magical connection that suddenly grants power. Power is conceded under pressure, and without leverage, pressure doesn't exist. Society quietly depends on these illusions, because networking converts ambition into safe activity. Instead of building position, people socialize. Instead of creating leverage, they focus on likability. Instead of becoming unavoidable, they become pleasant. Every step feels productive, but nothing destabilizes the structure. And that's exactly the point. This is the core mechanism most people never notice. Networking doesn't actually create power. What it creates is the feeling of progress for people who don't yet have power. You stay busy. You attend events. You meet new people. You exchange ideas, messages, and introductions. Your calendar fills up, your contact list grows, and it feels like something meaningful is happening. But activity and power are not the same thing. Power is not measured by movement. It's measured by weight. More specifically, by the weight of your absence. If you disappear and nothing changes, nothing slows down, nothing becomes harder, then all that networking was simply background noise. The uncomfortable truth is that many people confuse familiarity with influence. Networking makes you familiar. People recognize your name. They've seen you before. They remember conversations you've had. But recognition is not power. Power begins when people start calculating the risk of proceeding without you. Familiarity creates comfort, and comfort quietly dissolves authority. Those who hold real power rarely focus on being liked. Instead, they create a controlled level of tension around their presence. Not hostility, not arrogance, but just enough distance that their involvement always feels consequential. Watch how power reacts to two types of people. The first person is always visible. They initiate conversations constantly, follow up frequently, and work hard to maintain every relationship. The second person appears rarely. But when they do appear, it's always connected to resources, decisions, or structural change. The first person becomes recognizable. The second person becomes memorable. And in power dynamics, being remembered always outweighs being recognized. Networking also feeds another psychological desire, the need to be seen. People who lack position often confuse visibility with value. They believe that if they stay present enough, if they remain close enough to influential people, eventually relevance will emerge. But power does not operate on goodwill or emotional familiarity. It operates on leverage and dependency. Without dependency, influence does not exist. This is why networking is particularly seductive to intelligent individuals who haven't yet secured control over something essential. Networking allows them to feel like they are playing a larger strategic game. But in reality, they remain safely contained within acceptable boundaries. They are not rejected. They are not blocked. They are not excluded. But they are also never chosen. And that distinction is everything, because every real power structure follows the same quiet law. Within any network, the person who needs the most relationships is always the one with the least power. When someone desperately needs to stay visible, to stay remembered, to stay connected, they are revealing that their position cannot pull others in naturally. The moment someone no longer needs to be remembered is the moment they begin to become dangerous, because now their presence carries weight on its own. When power arrives, networking doesn't disappear because someone becomes morally superior. It disappears because it becomes unnecessary. People approach power naturally, not out of admiration, but out of calculation. Machiavellian thinking understood this long before modern networking culture existed. If someone had asked Niccolo Machiavelli how many people you should know, he probably would have considered the question irrelevant, because that's the question of someone standing outside the center of power. The only question that mattered to him was far simpler. Who must account for you when decisions are made? In Machiavellian logic, networking is not a tool for building influence. It's a signal that influence has not yet been achieved. Those who hold power do not expand their social circles in search of advantage. They build advantage first. Then relationships naturally form around that advantage. For Machiavelli, relationships were always a consequence of leverage, never its source. He didn't build networks. He built leverage. And leverage is always asymmetric. A relationship only has strategic value when one side loses more by the absence of the other. If your disappearance produces no cost, then every connection you maintain is purely ceremonial. It may feel important, but structurally it carries no power. Those who chase networking often believe that influence comes from acceptance, from being welcomed into the room, from being liked. Machiavelli understood something colder. Power comes from the ability to refuse. When you can decline an invitation, ignore a request, or remain silent, and the system must still adapt to you, that is position. The person who cannot say no is always below. In a Machiavellian world, the powerful do not introduce themselves. They are approached. Not because they are charming, not because they are friendly, but because they control something others cannot easily replace. That difference separates the player from the played. The networker is trying to enter the game. The powerful person already shaped the rules. Machiavelli also recognized another hidden danger of networking. It exposes intention. Every proactive approach reveals desire. Every maintained relationship creates expectation. And every expectation becomes a restraint. The more obligations you accumulate, the less freedom you retain. Power requires room to maneuver, not a web of commitments pulling in every direction. This is why real power often appears difficult to read. It speaks less. It appears less frequently. It rarely explains itself. Not because it enjoys mystery, but because ambiguity itself creates leverage. When others are uncertain about your boundaries, they become cautious. They begin adjusting their behavior automatically. Uncertainty becomes influence. If Machiavelli observed modern networking culture today, the conferences, the business cards, the polite promises of collaboration, he probably wouldn't see strategic mastery. He would see compensation, activity performed by people who lack the authority to shape outcomes, presence substituted for position. And that distinction is critical. Machiavelli was not against relationships. He understood their value perfectly well. But he rejected the illusion that relationships create power. For him, power came from only one thing: the ability to force others to adjust their behavior, even when you are not present. Once you understand this, networking starts to lose its appeal. Because you realize something fundamental. Power is not located in who you know. It is located in who cannot afford to ignore you. The inner circle of power is not something you simply enter. It is something that filters people out. This is the reality most believers in networking never want to face. People are not invited into the inner circle because they are loyal, friendly, or socially skilled. Those qualities might help someone function at an operational level, but they rarely determine who gets real influence. At the level where power actually operates, there is only one question that matters: what happens if this person disappears? Those who enter the inner circle are not chosen because they are agreeable. They are chosen because removing them creates risk. Risk to information, risk to resources, risk to timing, risk to decisions, risk to the structure itself. When someone's absence creates strategic danger, that person becomes difficult to remove. And that is the only reliable way people are retained at the center of power. This is where most networking illusions collapse. The inner circle does not need people who communicate well. It needs bottlenecks. People who control something essential. People who control information flow. People who control key decisions. People who control timing. People whose participation makes alternatives worse if they are not involved. Power is indifferent to personality. Someone can be charming, polite, and socially brilliant, but if they are easily replaceable, they will never enter the inner circle. Meanwhile, someone who is difficult, quiet, or even unpleasant but structurally irreplaceable will remain indispensable, even if no one particularly likes them. This is also why the inner circle of power rarely feels warm. Warm environments prioritize emotional comfort. Power prioritizes risk management. Members of powerful groups may distrust each other, they may compete, they may quietly resent each other, but they remain connected for one reason: they need each other. And in power dynamics, need always outweighs liking. Look at how real decisions are made. Not in crowded rooms, not in large gatherings, not during social events. Real decisions are made in spaces where very few people are invited, and the few who are present share one defining trait. Each one controls a part of the structure that makes the decision dangerous without them. None of them are there because of networking. They are there because excluding them carries a cost. This is why the most common networking question is fundamentally flawed. People often ask, "How do I get into the inner circle?" But that question assumes access is granted through relationships. The correct question is far more uncomfortable. What do I control that makes excluding me a mistake? Until that question has a real answer, every relationship remains provisional. You may be welcomed. You may be invited to conversations. You may even feel included, but you are not retained. And in power structures, there are really only two states: retained or replaceable. The inner circle does not reward effort. It rewards leverage. No one gives power to someone who cannot impose a cost, if ignored. And this is the darker truth networking culture rarely acknowledges openly. Those who hold power do not avoid networking because they are arrogant. They avoid it because networking exposes weakness. Every act of networking leaves a trace. When someone appears too frequently, speaks too eagerly, connects too widely, they unintentionally reveal something about themselves. They reveal their desires. Power does not need you to explain what you want. It simply observes where you go, who you pursue, and how eagerly you try to be included. Networking turns intention into a public signal, and in power dynamics, the one who reveals intention first is usually beneath the one who reads it. Networking also creates something else that powerful people instinctively avoid: obligation. Every new connection carries an expectation. You are expected to respond, expected to attend, expected to maintain the relationship. These expectations become invisible tethers. The more tethers you accumulate, the less freedom you retain. And power requires freedom of movement. It requires the ability to make decisions without negotiating with a web of social commitments. This is one reason powerful individuals often appear distant. Not because they dislike people, but because distance protects maneuverability. There is also another quieter truth. Networking gradually destroys selectivity. When access becomes too open, control over access disappears. Power does not keep doors closed to appear mysterious. It keeps doors closed to preserve the value of access. Anything easily accessible loses value. Scarcity naturally creates hierarchy. Those who hold power understand something else as well. Networking creates an illusion of equality. Friendly conversations, shared jokes, casual interactions. These things make people feel like everyone in the room stands on the same level. But power does not exist inside equality. Power exists inside distance. Clear distance stabilizes hierarchy. Networking blurs that distance. And that is precisely why it becomes risky behavior at higher levels. Networking also consumes the most limited resources power has: time and attention. Every unnecessary meeting dilutes influence. Every additional conversation spreads focus thinner. Those who hold power are extremely careful with their time. They do not spend it searching for opportunity. They spend it protecting the position that already generates opportunity. Anything that does not strengthen that position is removed without hesitation. This creates a paradox that outsiders often struggle to understand. The less frequently power appears, the stronger it often becomes. Controlled absence creates a vacuum, and vacuums force people to react. They speculate, they adjust, they wait. Networking breaks this dynamic by replacing absence with constant presence. When someone appears everywhere, speaks constantly, and engages everyone, their influence begins to dissolve into familiarity, and familiarity drains authority. This is why when powerful individuals observe aggressive networking behavior, they rarely interpret it as ambition. Instead, they interpret it as searching for a place. And in power structures, searching for a place usually means you don't have one yet. Real power does not seek validation. It demands consideration. It does not reject relationships entirely, but it rejects relationships that create no leverage, no risk, and no structural advantage. That is why networking becomes unnecessary once real power exists. When someone controls the timing of decisions, the flow of information, or a critical bottleneck in the system, they do not need to seek people out. People approach them naturally, carefully, deliberately, fully aware of the imbalance that already exists. And that's when the entire conversation changes. The question is no longer, who should I connect with? The question becomes, who deserves access? This is the moment where the entire frame shifts. As long as you are asking how to build relationships, you are still standing in the position of someone asking for access. But the moment you begin asking who deserves access to you, something fundamental changes. Your position begins to shift, because power begins exactly at that transition. Selection is not just a social behavior. It is a structural act. Those who hold real power do not go searching for people. Instead, They create conditions that force people to appear on their own, not because they are charming, not because they are charismatic, but because they control something others need, a bottleneck. That bottleneck might be resources, it might be information, it might be decisions, it might be timing, it might be distribution or capital. Whatever the form, the result is the same. The flow of something valuable must pass through them, and once you control a bottleneck, networking becomes unnecessary. What you need instead is filtering. This is the real difference between networking and selection. Networking moves outward. Selection pulls inward. One expands in order to be accepted. The other contracts in order to preserve control. One fears being excluded. The other makes exclusion dangerous. Under selection, relationships are no longer the goal. They become conditional rewards. Not everyone receives access. Not everyone gets a conversation. Not everyone receives information. And a trick here. It's the natural result of position. And position is built through leverage, not like. When someone shifts into selection, the behavior of others changes almost immediately. People stop approaching casually. They begin observing first. They calculate timing before speaking. They ask indirectly instead of directly. This doesn't happen because you suddenly became friendlier or more welcoming. It happens because the cost of rejection has appeared. Selection also demands something that networking culture rarely teaches: the ability to exclude. Those who hold power do not try to satisfy everyone. They accept being disliked. They accept being misunderstood. They accept being labeled distant, difficult, or cold, because every correct exclusion increases the value of being chosen. And in power dynamics, value always concentrates around what is difficult to access. Here is the critical point. You cannot occupy the position of chooser while also occupying the position of applicant. These two states cancel each other out. The moment you seek approval, you surrender the right to select. But the moment you allow others to wait, to speculate, to adjust themselves, to approach you, the rules begin to change. Selection does not require constant visibility. It requires irreplaceability. It does not require constant presence. It requires that your absence creates a gap. It does not require popularity. It requires that others calculate the consequences of moving forward without you. This is the boundary most people never cross, because selection forces you to abandon the comfortable illusion of networking. Instead, you enter a space of controlled isolation. In that space, you are not widely known, but everyone who knows you understands something very clearly. Your involvement matters. From that point forward, every relationship inverts. You no longer build the network. You define it. Power rarely reveals itself through words. It reveals itself through behavior, through how real situations quietly sort people into higher and lower positions. If you observe closely, the difference between networking and selection becomes obvious in real-world scenarios. In business, the networker is always chasing opportunity. They introduce themselves. They pitch ideas. They request meetings. They look for partnerships. The person in selection does none of that. They hold the customer base. They control the distribution channel. They hold the capital. They control the final decision. When they go silent, projects slow down. When they reappear, things accelerate. No one asks them how many people they know. People ask when they will decide. Inside organizations, networking often appears as alliance building. People maintain relationships. They smooth conflicts. They try to keep everyone supportive. But the person in selection does not depend on alliances. They control sequence and timing. A meeting only matters when they attend. A decision only becomes final when they approve it. Others may debate. Others may negotiate. but they still wait. That is the difference between participating in a discussion and defining the outcome. Even in social environments, the pattern is the same. The networker maintains constant presence. They stay visible. They keep connections warm. The person in selection appears rarely, but when they do appear, the atmosphere shifts. People become more careful, more attentive. No one is fully certain what they think or how they will react. That uncertainty forces adjustment. Across every environment, the pattern repeats. The networker moves constantly. The one in selection causes others to move around them. One asks, "Who should I meet?" The other asks, "Who needs me?" One remains visible in order to stay included. The other remains silent in order to force consideration. There is no scenario where networking overturns power. At best, networking allows someone on the outside to approach the edge of the table, but the edge is not the center. Selection is the center, and selection only appears when you control something the system cannot operate smoothly without. If you want to understand real power, stop listening to what people say. Watch what they do. Who waits for replies? Who adjusts schedules? Who delays decisions when someone is absent? These questions reveal more than any conversation about relationships ever could, because behavior is always more honest than words. In every real-world setting, the outcome is the same. The skilled networker might be invited, but the person in selection is retained. One person can attend endless meetings and change nothing. Another person can simply be absent and everything slows down. That is the final boundary between social activity and real power. Once you see the world through this lens, networking stops looking like the ultimate skill. Instead, it becomes a signal that the decision point is not yet in your hands. And when the decision point finally is in your hands, something interesting happens. Relationships reorganize themselves automatically. No invitations, no chasing, no effort, only adjustment. If you've listened this far and are still thinking about networking, it reveals something important. You may still be seeking acceptance rather than consideration. Power does not respond to effort. It responds to position. The moment your position can be ignored without consequence, everything else becomes irrelevant. Skills, connections, goodwill. None of them matter if your presence remains optional. This is the line that must be drawn clearly. If you disappear and nothing changes, then you do not hold power. No matter how many people you know, a real shift happens only when others begin adjusting their behavior because you exist. When they wait for your response. When they delay decisions until you appear. When they calculate the risk of proceeding without you. That shift is not emotional. It is behavioral. Ask yourself these questions honestly. If you withdraw, who encounters problems? If you go silent, what slows down? If you are removed, who pays the price? If there are no clear answers, then networking is simply compensating for missing leverage. You do not lack relationships. You lack a position that forces relationships to organize around you. A real power shift also requires accepting something uncomfortable. When you stop initiating contact, stop showing up constantly, stop maintaining endless social courtesy, some people will like you less. You may appear distant, cold, difficult to read, but that is not a flaw. It is the price of position. Power does not require affection. It requires calculation. The moment you stop asking how to connect and start asking what collapses without you, the frame changes. You stop chasing the network. You start generating gravity. Others may not enjoy that shift, but they will adjust. Do not confuse isolation with invisibility. People with power practice controlled isolation. They appear only at the critical moment. At the point where their presence carries weight, every appearance produces consequence, and consequence produces caution. Power does not require you to be louder. It requires you to become harder, to replace. You do not need to stand out. You need to control something the system cannot function smoothly without. When that happens, networking fades away naturally, not because it became morally wrong, but because it is no longer necessary. From that point, only one question remains. Are you trying to be remembered? Or are you building a position where ignoring you becomes a strategic mistake? If you cannot answer that question through the behavior of others, then the real game has not started yet, because networking belongs to those still outside the center. Power begins the moment you no longer need to play it.